Um, so I'm going to leave out some stuff uh, about a comparison that I made when I was talking to my wife about this subject. But I want to talk about conscription because there is a comedian from Australia. I'm not going to say his name either, because in case that was it. Who was talking about another person who I'm not going to say their name either, in case that was it. But they were talking about conscription, and this the second person was talking about, and she's a woman, and she was saying that she believes that women should surrender, voting rights until they either also are conscripted or until men aren't conscripted. Um, and me personally, I'm kind of torn on it because I, I I'm not a libertarian anymore. I don't know how I feel about conscription necessarily. I am a municipalist. I'm no longer a libertarian because I realize that libertarianism is just another cult of delusional utopists. And I don't do cults of delusional utopists. I try to ground my thoughts in reality as often as I can instead of what I wish reality was. Um, so I'm not entirely sure what the answer is. I just know that it needs to be consistent. It needs to be consistent. Either no one should be conscripted or everyone, not, I mean, like selective service. Either everyone should have to sign up for selective service or no one should have to sign up for selective service. In the case that there is a draft, everyone should be drafted or no one should be drafted. It shouldn't be because, and it was another point I made in that other video, um, is that, probably 80% of things that are done in the military are non-combat. Hold on, I got a FedEx truck coming by. Uh, but there are so many support roles in the military that have nothing to do with combat, and the like a lot of those support roles, the ones that women would probably be put into the most often are the ones that they were put into the most often when they volunteered during Vietnam or during World War II, World War I. Is women who volunteered for services domestically were put in hospitals, and that freed up professional women who worked in hospitals so they could actually go and work field hospitals closer to the front lines, or at least in Europe. Got another car coming. Sorry. Um, so I would imagine that it would be the same situation if there was a draft today, if there was conscription, if women had selective service like men do, and their number came up, they would probably just do something stateside related to support, either doing medical stuff or doing. I mean, a lot of warfare is autonomous now. A lot of women are drone pilots in the military now. Um, but there are all kinds of roles that women do and have played for millennia when it comes to war efforts. So and that's what the comedian said. He said it's a man's role to go to war, but women have played pivotal roles in warfare for thousands of years. They they have been providing support roles to militaries for thousands of years. And I don't know if you realize this, guys, but an army that doesn't have support is just a pile of corpses at the end of the day. It's wildly sexist to say that it's a man's role to go to war when women provide like most of the support throughout history for the men who were fighting war. And if those women weren't doing that, then those men would have just died. What was her name? Molly Pitcher. I think that was her name. The woman from the Revolutionary War. But yeah, got some more cars coming. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. I just know that it needs to be one or the other. Either everyone does it or no one does it. And I want to know what people's opinion is because I talked to my wife about it last night, and she compared it. She said that women give birth, and that's their form of conscription. And this is where I made a comparison about it being involuntary. Um, that process being involuntary. Um, and I felt the tension, elevate in the conversation, and it should, because it's a reference to a lack of, I wish I understood the new algorithm rules better, a lack of choice in your participation in certain activities. And the idea of that being the case for a woman in the context of reproduction should make make women angry when they hear that. That's some Handmaid's Tale stuff. But that was the point I was trying to make, and I'm hoping that she realized that at that point. Because I tried to like just veer off at that point. There's no point talking to people when you're heated. It never does any good. So maybe we can come back to it today, talk about it now that we're not heated. Um, but the point I was trying to make is like men get put into the meat grinder when they're drafted. And hold on, that's a loud one. Oh, oh, oh goodness. Um, so yeah, you sit here all the way up there. Wow, jeez. Um, where was I? But yeah, when men get drafted, they were and are just thrown into a meat grinder. You don't have to look far to see what happens during conscription. Men, all you have to do is look at Ukraine. Um, and typically, you're not getting that good of equipment. Honestly, I think the Ukrainians have gotten more equipment than most of our own soldiers get. If I'm being perfectly honest, I'd have to ask a soldier. I'd also have to see a real itinerary of what's gone over there, and I doubt I'm going to get that. But it's just a slaughter. When the draft happens, we have no choice in the matter. We are heavily violated in our bodily persons, and there's for 7 years a guy has to worry about being taken overseas, dropped off. Hopefully you die for something good, but you're probably not going to, and you're just going to bleed out while the trees are talking in a foreign language. And it's a really, really scary thought that every guy has to deal with for 7 years of his life. And I think it's a fair question to say, well, I mean, well, why do women not have to do anything to get these rights? Because it's not just voting; it's your voting rights, it's whether or not you can get a government job, whether or not you can get government benefits, Social Security, um, welfare, student loans. You can't get those if you don't sign up for the draft if you're a male. You don't have rights in American society if you don't sign up for this draft and tell the government you have the right to rip me away from everything and everyone that I love, send me halfway around the world so I can get killed by somebody who I have nothing to do with. Nothing to do with. And it's a fair question to ask. Like, why do 108 years, some odd, I think, I can't remember exactly which year women got voting rights. I think it was 1918, but I can't remember. But 100 and some years, we've been saying we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. That whole time, men have been saying, why are we still having to do this? Like, if voting is just an inherent right that Americans should have, then why are we the only ones that have to do all this stuff to get those rights? And that's a fair question to ask. The, and it should either be that everyone does it or nobody does it, just plain and simple. But it shouldn't be another year where we just refuse to acknowledge this, because a hundred plus years is too long to be kicking this can down the road. Um, and I have no problem with people asking this in the cultural sphere. It's a fair question. Anyway, I'll see y'all later.